Right, welcome back. So, a news of the day video for your Monday, March 8th, as we get closer to spring. Feels like spring out here. Yeah, and some news. Happy International Women's Day. And there's been some debate about women's hockey as of recent, and honestly, I've watched some of the PWHPA games. I've watched portions of them. I haven't done reviews of them. But I have watched portions of them. I haven't seen much about what the ratings have been for them. But here's where things get interesting. So the Dream Gap Tour continues, and they're getting full support from networks and from NHL teams as well. But the NWHL has now announced, hey, that tournament we suspended about a month ago, we're going to finish it March 26th and 27th, and they're going to have semifinals and then the finals in Brighton, Massachusetts, in the rink that's used by the Boston Pride for their practices and their games. And yeah, so they're going to complete their playoffs then. Toronto will play Boston, Montreal will play Connecticut, and then the winners of those games will play in the final the next day. So March 26th and 27th, the NWHL will finish things up. And they're extending an olive branch to the other women's group that has the Dream Gap Tour going on. And it all comes back to this issue that we have. And I've seen the comment of, well, why won't Gary Bettman come out and officially support the Dream Gap Tour? Because there's two different things going on. The NHL's been very clear the whole time. If they're going to get involved with women's hockey on an official level as you know, the entire league, there are individual teams that are helping out. There are individual teams that are paired up with certain groups, either from the PWHPA or the NWHL. The NHL doesn't want to pick a side in this fight. They basically want to have some semblance of who's going to come out in this as the victor. And it's interesting that the NWHL is extending an olive branch to these women that formed this union in part to get away from the NWHL business model that they said basically wasn't going to work. And I'm not sure how this is going to work. This is an argument that's been going on for, what, a year and a half? Like this fight between two different groups of female hockey players and the ability to have a league, it has been going on for a long time. And I'm not sure how you actually, I mean, the Dream Gap Tour is a great idea and all that. The NWHL, you know, some good hockey getting played there by some women that are very talented. And there are women who started this holdout that have gone back to the NWHL as well because they want to play, and they you know, may have gotten tired for waiting for the Dream Gap Tour in order to play. But they need to get this all figured out. And so for Gary Bettman to wait, let's say he waded in right now and he says, all right, so we're going to support the NWHL. Then the PWHPA comes out and says, thanks for not supporting us, Gary. Gary comes out and says, yeah, all right, well, we're supporting the Dream Gap Tour. The NWHL comes out and says, thanks, Gary. Thanks for trying to submarine us. So, yeah, I don't blame him for not getting involved. There's no point in getting involved. And the interesting thing I'm watching, too, is so you've got the two main, you know, websites for hockey-related news. And you've got TSN, you've got Sportsnet in Canada, right? TSN is not reporting on the women's hockey being played on the NHL page. Sportsnet is. And there seems to be some brushback about Sportsnet putting the women's hockey in as like NHL news and having it in the same spot. So it is interesting to watch this happen and see how different companies are dealing with it. And yeah, so I will say this. I would not do a video strictly on women's hockey and tag it as an NHL video because I don't feel like it is. I feel like it's, if you're talking about the NWHL, you're talking about the NWHL. If you're talking about the Dream Gap Tour, you're talking about the Dream Gap Tour. It's not National Hockey League news. So that's my opinion. And again, you know, I kind of understand what Sportsnet's thinking with this, but women's hockey, it's an ongoing struggle. And hopefully they get this all figured out, because having two leagues, ideally you'd have one healthy league and figure it out from there. Ideally, that's what happens. So hopefully this summer they all sit down and they figure this out and they come out of it with a game plan. the union, the NWHL, and they say, all right, so here's what we're going to do. And they come up with a game plan. And at that point, if you only have one league, one entity to deal with, and if there's a game plan and there's some sort of real organization to this that makes sense going forward, that's where the NHL as a league could step in and say, all right, so we can, do something with this. Anyways, that being said, moving along. Your 3 stars of the week in the National Hockey League. Mark Stone, number 1 out of Vegas. He had a lot of assists this week. Thatcher Demko out of Vancouver. I don't know why I said Tyler in the preview. It's not a big deal. But yeah, Thatcher Demko. And of course, the only thing with that is that I've been referred to by many various first names over the years. So I apologize for misspeaking Thatcher Demko's first name, but it's fine. He's 2nd star of the week. The interesting thing to me is that I've still seen people saying, well, with where the Canucks are, that's because they let Markstrom go. Demko has not been the problem. Demko's been pretty darn good. And Calgary's not burning up the standings right now either. So, right? And Marty Necas being the 3rd star of the week out of Carolina. Nice to see him get some recognition. One of the more underrated players in the league, likely in part due to the fact that he's in Carolina. So, yeah, Necas, 3rd star of the week. Waiver wire news today. Justin Dowling of the Dallas Stars is on waivers. He can be useful 4th liner. No real upside beyond that. And Colton Sevier of Pittsburgh, same thing. I would not be surprised to see Dallas claim Sevier. I liked him in Dallas. I think he's, again, useful 4th line player. Wouldn't be entirely surprised. I wouldn't be surprised to see him clear either. But yeah, those are your waiver wire guys for today. There will also be a Board of Governors call today. So the draft will apparently be the primary topic, according to Darren Drager. And they will discuss the financials of the league and where they're at and all this other wonderful stuff as the league continues to try to find ways to generate revenues. And of course, players will be very interested in how they intend to do that, because while the owners lose, X amount of money, half of that money then is taken from the players. So yeah, Board of Governors call today. We may hear about what the plan is with the draft by the end of this week, because GMs need to know how much their draft picks are worth going into the trade deadline. If they're not going to push back the draft, those draft picks are worth very little. There really hasn't been the amount of scouting you're going to want for a draft class to feel, any kind of certainty. And of course, we've talked about in previous drafts how much of a wild card it can be once you get out of the first 15 picks. And you can get a guy at 25 who might be great. You can get a guy at 26 that might never play in the league, and that kind of thing. So if we don't see any change with the draft, all the draft picks at the deadline, I think, will be probably 2022 picks. There might be the occasional 2021 that comes up, but I really think the value of 2021 draft picks is just not very high, unless a team like Detroit was willing to move their first rounder, which they're not. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do with the draft. And I really do think, and I saw on TSN the panel talking about how nervous they are that it's going to be a really, really dead trade deadline. They're probably right. You may see U.S. teams trade with the U.S. teams, Canadian teams trade with Canadian teams, but I don't think there's going to be anything major. Like, I think trade speculation is going to be high. You're going to see crazy topics about, is Eichel going at the deadline? What if Detroit decides to move Larkin? He's been hurt and they're still about the same. So what if we're going to see all kinds of crazy speculation. Not for me, because that doesn't age well. But yeah, I think it's going to be a slow trade deadline. We may see a lot of trades, but in terms of actual name players, it might be a very slow deadline. GMs may just think it's better to wait until the off season when border restrictions don't matter, because players aren't playing, so you can trade whoever, wherever, and the divisions are going to go back to normal. So it may change up who your trading partners are then as well. For instance, Chicago plays Tampa a lot this year, right? Now, normally they're in opposite conferences. Maybe you're Stan Bowman, you're watching the Lightning, and you're saying, "Hey, that Volkov kid's pretty good. I wonder what they'd want. We think we could use him." Or vice versa. Maybe Tampa Bay's watching, Chicago all the time, and they're like, we think that some of these guys are pretty good, that they've got, we'd like to make a move. But you don't want to make that move when they're in your division. So that's one just sprinkling of speculation for you. That's as far as I go into it. So yeah, there you go. There will be no supplementary discipline for Connor Murphy after the hit on Eric Chernak. Chernak was not at the skate this morning. He is likely not playing tomorrow for Tampa as well. So hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he's not out for very long. And the reason that they're saying there's not going to be any supplementary discipline is because Jeremy Colleton was asked whether or not Connor Murphy would be in the lineup tomorrow night, and he said yes. So that tells me, yeah, if the coach is saying yeah he'll be in the lineup, that means the NHL's not doing anything further about the hit on Chernak. Good news for Columbus. Elvis is back. Merzlikins will be back, so they take the other Finnish netminder and send him down. Vavalainen. And so you've got Elvis, you've got Jonas Korpisalo, and we'll see how things go for Columbus. They need to string together some wins. So if Elvis is good, maybe throw him in the net, see if he gets red hot, and if you can maybe win 3 or 4 in a row, because they need to. The split between the top 4 and the bottom 4 in the Central is already pretty stark, and it just feels like it's growing. But yeah, so we'll see if Elvis coming back helps them. And just throwing this in here to word out that Pettersson skated before the other Canucks came in, and when the other Canucks came in, he was off the ice. That would tell me it's doubtful that Elias Pettersson's playing tonight. The good thing is the Canucks have won 2 in a row with him out of the lineup. So it has not adversely affected the Canucks not having him in the lineup. And there you go. I think the funniest thing I've seen is that in the first game with Pettersson out of the lineup, Virtanen gets a couple of goals, and somebody tweeted out, who knew that what was holding back Jake Virtanen was Pettersson. That once you get Pettersson out of the lineup, Virtanen is a superstar. So, entertaining. Definitely not the case, but hey, we'll see whether or not he plays tonight against Montreal. And what kind of different looks Vancouver can give him. Because clearly, in the 5 games they played against each other so far this year, it hasn't gone very well. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.